Hello Army, welcome back to the channel, and if you are new here, welcome, because today we are doing something that is an absolute necessity after what happened at Stanford Stadium on May 19th, which is the Day 3 show of the Arirang World Tour's Stanford run, and which gave the entire Army community a moment that has been living rent-free in everyone's heads ever since it happened. We are talking about Jimin. We are talking about Jungkook. We are talking about a very specific, very documented, very widely witnessed and very enthusiastically discussed moment in which Jungkook, apparently finding the stage, the lights, the 60,000 screaming fans, and the entire weight of the Arirang World Tour insufficient entertainment for his particular energy that evening, decided that what the moment needed was to grab Jimin's shirt and pull it up in front of everyone. And Jimin's face. And the crowd's reaction. And the absolute perfect chaos of two people who have known each other for over a decade expressing that knowledge and the most Jungkook doing something to Jimin way possible, on the biggest stage of the tour so far, on a night that was already extraordinary before this specific thing happened. So get comfortable, Army. This one is everything you need it to be. But first let me give you the full context of Day 3, because this moment did not happen in a vacuum and the context makes it richer and more meaningful and honestly even funnier than it would be without it. Stanford Day 3, the May 19th show, was not originally supposed to exist. When the Arirang World Tour North American dates were first announced, Stanford Stadium was scheduled for 2 nights, May 16th and May 17th. That is already an extraordinary commitment of a large outdoor venue, already a demonstration of the level of demand that BTS generates in California and in the Bay Area specifically. And then the demand kept coming. The pre-sales were overwhelming, the secondary market went to prices that made clear just how many people were willing to travel significant distances and pay significant amounts to be in that stadium for those shows, and eventually the decision was made to add a third night. May 19th was added because the people demanded it, because 60-something thousand Army per night multiplied by the number of Army who still did not have tickets created a situation where simply not doing another show felt like leaving something important on the table. The addition of a third night matters for understanding the energy of Day 3, because there is a specific quality to a show that exists because the demand for it was so strong that it had to be created. The audience on May 19th knew that their collective desire had made this night happen. They knew that without their collective passion and their collective insistence, they would not be standing in Stanford Stadium on a Tuesday. There is a specific kind of ownership that comes from that knowledge, a sense that this show belongs to them in a way that is slightly different from the way a show announced months in advance belongs to its audience. And BTS, who understand their audience with the depth and the specificity that comes from 13 years of sustained mutual attention, clearly felt and responded to that energy. Now let's set the scene for the specific moment we are here to celebrate, which requires understanding what the show as a whole was doing and where in it this particular chaos erupted. Day 3 of the Stanford run was, by multiple accounts from people who attended all 3 shows, the loosest and the most spontaneous of the 3 nights. The first night, May 16th, was the one where the production found its footing in the specific environment of Stanford Stadium where the 360-degree in-the-round stage design, which is one of the defining features of the Arirang Tour production, was calibrated to the specific dimensions and acoustics of the venue, where the members settled into the particular energy of a California crowd after the Mexico run. The second night had the benefit of that calibration and delivered what multiple reviews described as a more confident and more fluid version of the production. And the third night, the added night, the night that existed because 60,000 people refused to accept that 2 nights were enough, had all of that accumulated comfort and confidence plus the specific quality of a last night, a closing of a chapter, the particular energy that comes from knowing this specific run of shows is ending tonight. Last nights at any multi-night venue residency tend to produce the best and the most spontaneous moments in a tour, and the reason is fairly simple. By the last night, everyone on stage has found a level of comfort with the venue, the production, the specific audience energy of that market, and the specific version of the show that has emerged across the run, that allows for a kind of playfulness and improvisation that is not possible on the first night when everyone is still learning. The first night is about executing. The last night is about living. And when BTS lives inside a concert, when they are fully at ease and fully connected to each other and to the audience, things happen that were not in the rehearsal notes and that no production schedule anticipated. Jungkook pulling Jimin's shirt up on stage in front of 60,000 people was one of those things. Let's talk about the actual moment, because the images and videos that have been circulating, and they have been circulating everywhere, from ARMY fan accounts to general K-pop pages to people who have never followed BTS but encountered this in their algorithm and immediately needed to know what was happening, tell a very specific story that is worth reading carefully. The photographs show Jimin and Jungkook facing each other on stage, both mid-movement, both clearly in the middle of something that was not choreographed but was also clearly very much happening. Jungkook has grabbed Jimin's jacket or hoodie and is pulling it, and the result is that Jimin's shirt is coming up, revealing his midsection, and his expression is precisely the expression of someone who is simultaneously exasperated, amused, completely unsurprised, and possibly considering his options for revenge. It is the face of someone who has dealt with this specific kind of energy from this specific person for a very long time. And Jungkook's face. Jungkook's face in these photographs is one for the permanent record. He is laughing. He is laughing with the full, unguarded, completely genuine quality of someone who is having an absolutely wonderful time doing something he knows he probably should not be doing but is doing anyway because it is very funny and he wants to, and in this specific moment with this specific person in this specific charged and joyful atmosphere, it is exactly the right thing. It is the face of the golden magne doing precisely what the golden magne does, which is to find the exact action that will produce the exact reaction and then execute it with complete commitment and zero remorse. Now let's talk about why this moment is so specifically and so perfectly joyful, because I think it is easy to just respond to it with laughter and excitement and move on, but there is actually something worth thinking about in why this particular dynamic, Jungkook doing chaotic things to Jimin, Jimin reacting with the specific combination of fondness and exhaustion that defines his response to Jungkook's chaos is so beloved and so consistently entertaining. It comes down to something that is visible in every version of this dynamic across the entire span of their career together, which is the quality of genuine comfort and genuine knowledge that it expresses. You cannot pull someone's shirt up on stage in front of 60,000 people unless you are completely, utterly at ease with that person. You cannot do it unless you know with absolute certainty exactly how they will react, not because you have rehearsed the reaction but because you know them well enough that the reaction is predictable in the way that deeply familiar things are predictable. And you cannot do it with the specific quality of joy that Jungkook brings to every version of this dynamic, the pure, unself-conscious delight of someone who is being exactly himself with exactly the person he is most himself around, unless the relationship that produces the moment is a real and deep and genuinely warm one. Jimin and Jungkook have been in each other's lives since they were teenagers. They trained together, debuted together, spent years on tour buses and in hotel rooms and on stages and in Weber's posts and in moments of triumph and difficulty that built a relationship between two people who started as labelmates and became something that is very hard to categorize but that is clearly and obviously one of the most significant relationships in either of their lives. The Jungkook who pulls Jimin's shirt up on stage is the same Jungkook who, as a 14-year-old trainee, looked up to Jimin and built something between them that has survived and deepened through all the extraordinary circumstances of their shared career. The Jimin who responds with that specific expression of fondness and exasperation has known and loved Jungkook across a decade and more of being exactly themselves in each other's presence. That is what the moment communicates. Not just chaos. Not just the comedy of one person doing something mischievous to another. But the specific quality of a relationship so long and so real that the people in it can be completely, authentically themselves even on the largest stages in the world, even in front of 60,000 people, even in the middle of one of the most significant concert runs of their careers. The shirt pull is funny. But what it expresses is genuine and deep, and that is why it lands so powerfully with everyone who sees it. Let's also appreciate the specific context of what was happening in the concert more broadly that night, because the Day 3 Stanford show was not just a backdrop for Jungkook chaos, it was an extraordinary event in its own right, and the moments that surrounded and preceded and followed the shirt incident were themselves worth discussing. The Stanford Daily Review, published the morning of Day 3 itself, described BTS electrifying Stanford Stadium in a long-awaited return, and the energy of that return was something that built throughout the run of shows and reached a particular intensity on the final night. The three-night Stanford run represented something significant in the narrative of the Arirang World Tour. It was the first extended American residency of the tour, the first sustained engagement with Bay Area Army specifically, and it produced the kind of layered and accumulated magic that only multiple nights at the same venue can create. The poplock cipher during Dynamite that has been widely reported from the Stanford shows Jimin, Jin, and Jungkook doing spontaneous freestyle moves while Jin humorously stuck to the official choreography is another example of the same quality that produced the shirt incident. These are moments of genuine spontaneity that emerge when performers are sufficiently at ease and sufficiently connected to each other that the structured performance gives way to something more immediate and more personal. The Arirang tour production is extraordinary and its structure is clearly deliberate and carefully considered. But within that structure, BTS finds space for the unscripted, for the moments that remind everyone in the room that these are real people who genuinely enjoy being on stage together, who have fun together, who surprise each other and delight in the surprise. The review from Riff magazine described how the looser choreography of the Stanford shows gave the vocalists extra prominence, allowing Jimin and Jungkook and Jin and V to let go without worrying as much about staying in lockstep. That freedom is precisely what produces moments like the shirt incident. When performers are not required to be in perfect synchronized formation at every moment, they can respond to each other, can play with each other, can do the specific kind of spontaneous interpersonal chaos that a relationship like Jimin and Jungkook's generates when given the opportunity. The looser format gave Jungkook the opening. Jungkook, being Jungkook, took it. There is also something specifically worth noting about how Jimin handled what happened, because his response is as much a part of the story as Jungkook's action. The photographs show him in the middle of the moment, and what they capture is not embarrassment or discomfort or any negative quality whatsoever. They capture someone who is completely at ease in a situation that most people would find mortifying, who is responding to an unexpected and slightly chaotic intrusion on their personal space with the specific quality of amused acceptance that only exists between people who are genuinely comfortable with each other. Jimin's response to Jungkook's chaos is always calibrated in exactly this way, never genuinely annoyed, never actually uncomfortable, always somewhere in the register of the things I deal with combined with I have known you long enough that this is just who you are. It is the response of someone who loves the person who is causing the chaos, even while they are absolutely in the middle of the chaos. The crowd's reaction, which is visible in the wider shots and audible in the video footage that has been circulating, is also worth spending a moment on. 60,000 people watched this happen in real time. 60,000 people saw Jungkook pull Jimin's shirt up and saw Jimin's expression and heard whatever verbal response occurred in that specific moment, and the reaction was immediate and overwhelming and unanimous. Screaming. The specific kind of screaming that is less about volume and more about register, the high, surprised, completely involuntary sound that comes out of a large crowd when something unexpected and wonderful happens right in front of them. It is the sound of 60,000 people having the same moment of delight simultaneously, and it is one of the most specifically joyful sounds that exists in the context of a live concert. Now let me tell you about what has been happening in the days since day 3, because the aftermath of the shirt moment has been generating its own ongoing conversation that is worth documenting. The photographs and videos have spread far beyond the ARMY community, as this particular kind of Jungkook content tends to do, reaching general entertainment social media, K-pop adjacent communities, and even people with no particular connection to BTS who encountered the images in their social media feeds and immediately needed to understand what was happening and why. The combination of the visual humor of the moment, the clearly genuine quality of both Jimin's and Jungkook's expressions, and the infectious energy of the crowd reaction makes it remarkably accessible even to people who do not know the backstory. You do not need 13 years of following this relationship to find this moment funny and warm. Multiple accounts have noted that this is far from the first time Jungkook has created exactly this kind of chaos with Jimin specifically, and that the accumulated history of these moments is part of what makes each new one so satisfying. There is a long and well-documented archive of Jungkook doing something unexpected and slightly chaotic to Jimin reacting with the specific combination of fondness and exasperation, and ARMY losing their collective mind about it. The Stanford Day 3 shirt incident is the latest and one of the most memorable entries in that archive, but it draws its power and its resonance from the depth of that history. When you see this moment and you know the context, when you know that this is two people who have been doing versions of this dynamic for over a decade, who have grown up together and built something real and are now expressing that realness on the largest stage of their career, it hits differently from how it would hit if these were two strangers encountering each other for the first time. ARMY knows the history. ARMY has the context. And ARMY's response to the Stanford Day 3 moment reflects that knowledge and that context, the combination of immediate laughter and the deeper warmth of recognizing something familiar and beloved, of seeing something that is entirely consistent with who these two people are together and feeling, in that consistency, the specific comfort of something real. Let's also talk about what this moment and others like it say about the Arirang World Tour more broadly and about what BTS is bringing to this run of shows. One of the things that has been consistently noted across the reviews and the fan reports from the tour is that this version of BTS, the 2026 version, the post-military version, the version that has come back from 4 years of separation and individual growth and the specific clarifying experience of completing mandatory service and returning to something you love, is different from previous versions in ways that are meaningful and visible. The looser relationship to strict choreography in some segments. The greater emphasis on live vocal performance. The spontaneous moments, the impromptu ciphers, the shirt incidents. These are not accidents or departures from the plan. They are expressions of a group that has come back to performing together with a specific quality of ease and enjoyment that comes from having been away long enough to know exactly how much you missed it. Jungkook pulling Jimin's shirt up on stage in Stanford is, in its own small and delightful way, an expression of that ease. It is what happens when 7 people who have been performing together for 13 years come back to a stage after a long absence and find that the comfort they built across all those years of shared performance is not just still there but deeper and more settled than it was before. The shirt incident could not have happened on a first concert or in the early years of the group's career. It requires the specific kind of settled, comfortable, genuinely joyful ease that comes from long familiarity and from the specific relief of return, of being back where you belong with the people you belong with, doing the thing you love more than almost anything, in front of 60,000 people who are there because they love you. That is the full context of one shirt pull at Stanford Stadium on May 19, 2026. And now you know everything. The tour moves on from Stanford to Las Vegas next, and then to the rest of the North American dates and eventually Europe and beyond through the end of next March. There will be more spontaneous moments, more fan-voted surprise songs, more Jungkook chaos, more everything that has made the Arirang tour one of the most talked about and most celebrated concert experiences of this decade. And somewhere in the middle of all of that, Jimin will almost certainly be in some proximity to Jungkook when Jungkook decides to do something that Jimin did not ask for and would probably prefer he had not done in front of tens of thousands of people. And Jimin's face will be exactly what it always is in those moments, that specific expression of someone who has loved the same chaotic person for more than a decade and has accepted that this is simply part of the deal. And ARMY will absolutely lose it. Because that is what Jungkook does. That is what it has always done. And Stanford Day 3 just gave us the newest and one of the finest examples of it. Thank you so much for watching today's video. If you enjoyed it, please give it a thumbs up. It genuinely helps the channel grow and reach more ARMY who need this specific kind of joy in their lives. Drop a comment below sharing your immediate reaction to the Stanford Day 3 shirt moment. Did you see it live? Did you catch it on fan cam? And what was your actual face when it happened? Subscribe if you have not already, share this with your fellow ARMY, and I will see you in the next one. Purple you all.